everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here with Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, Pete Wright. Hello, everyone.
Welcome. I'm drinking tea.
You are. I'm drinking water.
Have you tried tea since your tea debacle of 2015?
Nope. Oh. I haven't even touched the stuff.
It's white peach today. White peach.
Fun. You like it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's so good with honey. It's like it's drinking fruit candy. But not in a way that makes it sound terrible. If you don't like fruit candy, then it's not at all like drinking fruit candy.
That's right. It's just like honey.
Effervescent.
That's right. Awesome.
We are talking a little bit more about vulnerability and uncertainty today. But before we do that, head over to TakeControlADHD.com and get to know us a bit better. Listen to the show right there on the website or subscribe to our mailing list right there on the homepage so you'll get a little email every time a new episode is posted. And so please do that. Make sure you don't miss a thing. Connect with us on Twitter or Facebook at TakeControlADHD and call us. You can always leave us a voicemail, 503-664-4ADD. Get your voice, your thoughts, your questions right here on the show. We would love to hear from you.
Yes, and I want to add something.
Please add.
We have a little bit less than a week left for group coaching. So if you're interested in joining a group with ADHD moms or with moms who have children with ADHD, or you're an ADHD professional and you're looking to join a group that focuses on productivity and more of the work kind of stuff, jump on the website and sign up. I'd love to have you join me.
It's not if you're an ADHD professional, but if you're a professional who is struggling with ADHD.
That's right. That does sound funny. Are you an
ADHD professional? Yes.
That's a very good point.
Yes. So, but that starts those funny groups. So we only have a week left to register, and then the groups will form last week of March. Very exciting.
Right. Yes, it is.
All right. So what are we talking about today? This is spun off of our last couple of weeks of conversations about vulnerability and uncertainty. What does that mean?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, what is it that we're talking about? Because I called you, Pete, this week, and I was like, I'm not really sure what to do with the next episode. And you and I both were kind of like, well, what's the positive spin on this? What? Not that the other stuff wasn't positive, but what can we take away from it? And what do we learn from all of this? And that's sort of where I think we're going to kind of go with being. Maybe it's okay to be uncertain of not knowing where to go with it, or being a little uncomfortable. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's a funny thing. I look at uncertainty. I think I hear a lot of fear in people when they talk about kind of uncertainty and what that means, and confusion generally is considered a scary word, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, in your consulting, when you're working with people, doesn't it when people say they're confused, it's usually out of some sort of internal terror, something they don't understand about themselves, and so it causes a constant kind of panic state. I mean, don't you see that?
Yeah, especially I think when I hear the word confused, it's more of probably like a decision that has to be made and they're not really sure which way to go, or too much information, not enough information, getting stuck on one particular piece of it. Hard to see sort of the big picture of things. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot wrapped around that word.
Yeah, there is. And it's so scary. I mean, it can be really, really scary, particularly if you're just learning about your own ADHD. And I think I definitely went through this. There was this period where I was I knew something was wrong. Right. I knew I didn't quite. We were, and I've told this story on the show too. I mean, we were sort of addressing this in the context of my daughter and her journey with ADHD. And I realized, oh my goodness, this is also me. So here I am trying to educate myself. And you can kind of see this, if you think of it as a continuum, there's like a line, there's a line in time. And I'm going through this line and I'm feeling pretty good, charting my emotional growth, thinking like, oh, maybe I get this. Maybe I understand what I'm doing here, and maybe I understand more about how I relate with the world. And suddenly it hit me, right? Mm-hmm. There's like this point in time where I realize that I can never be the person that I was yesterday. I know too much I know too much about the way I live. I know too much about my behavior systems. I know too much about the way I can and can't be productive. And I sank. I went into the valley, the great valley of rage and despair. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I don't. I mean, but I appreciate you explaining it.
Well, you can kind of, you visualize my little trend line of happiness going straight along. Hey, I'm learning, I'm researching, and then plummets down into this kind of I went through this severe reaction to what I had learned. It like all hit me all at once. I realized, it becomes this just fable, right? You're living in this fable where it's like, oh my gosh, I am deficient as a person. I am never going to be able to be productive again. And what's even worse, because of my relationship with my daughter, I have totally cursed her forever and ever. Amen. To live in the same, with the same shackles that have been living with.
So
right?
I'm hearing a little guilt there. Maybe.
A lot of guilt there, right? I mean, that's exactly the way it was for me, and how long we sit in that valley of sadness and confusion is really determined by our approach to what confusion is. And for me, the lesson was, I have to understand that confusion is a state. It is temporary, and it typically is a gateway to learning. Right? When I'm confused, it is all about opening the door to understanding, right? I would wake up in the morning and I'd have no idea what I would be able to accomplish during the day. I would have no systems in place to be able to, be productive at all. That wasn't even, 8 o'clock day one kind of material. It was how am I going to get out of bed? That's going to be 8 o'clock day one. Am I going to be able to get out of bed and even just open my eyes and look forward? Because I was really depressed. But as soon as I realized that confusion can be a positive trait, right? It can be a thing that we leverage to reframe doubt into opportunity. That everything changed for me.
So when did that shift happen for you, as far as being able to see confusion in that light?
I was working with another client and partner, and we were talking about organizational change, right? And how do we? Because my background's in education, we were working in a higher ed context and on a consulting arrangement with another university on the East Coast, and he really educated me on this concept around, organizational confusion. What happens when you're working on a team and you're like, oh my goodness, the team is not doing well. We have to address this big change, or there's a restructuring or reorganization or a new leader, whatever it is. And how do teams rationalize uncertainty, doubt, and confusion? And I realized this directly applies to me, and I happened to be doing this right around the time that we were uncovering this for my daughter. And I was just sort of suffering through my days, trying to be productive and supportive of my clients, but not really understanding, how I was relating to my own skin.
So then, were you able to, at that point, you made that connection and probably sat on it for a while, I would assume, and processed what he was saying to you and everything. Were you then, like, the next day, okay, I'm going to start working on these systems, or like what was your next step?
No,
because I'm thinking that people are going to want to know that, you know what I mean? Because I'm sure that what you just said and explained, a lot of people can relate to. But then there's also like that question of, well, what do I do now?
Yeah, there is, and it wasn't like that. I mean, there was. I remember vividly, like it was that learning that last point. Like that's when you finally push the domino, and all of the dominoes fall. It was that one point where I realized I'm never going to be able to go back to what it was before. But I'm in this.
What's wrong with before? Because you made that comment. You just made that comment at the very beginning where you said, I know I'm not going to be the person that I was yesterday. And I found that, I actually noted that because I found that as a really interesting comment. And then you bring it back up. Like, what were you before that's different now? And do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. The behaviors when I didn't understand what I was dealing with, right? I was, I had, the people had a view of me that was not, I don't think, I knew was not accurate, but I didn't know how to control that. And it was very frustrating, right? When you feel like, gosh, I know what I'm capable of giving to the world. I just don't know how to get it out of my hands or my mouth or my eyes.
And your intentions were always good.
Intentions are always good. Always, very enthusiastic, know what I'm capable of, not knowing how to actually deliver it. Until you hit a project that requires a great deal of hyperfocus, and you feel very strong in your hyperfocus, because that's a superhero power. But you didn't know how to cultivate that. You didn't know how to say yes to the right things that would do that. You end up saying yes to all the things that you can do, but not able to actually execute in a timely, efficient manner. Well, once I realized that I had learned, I was able to define what that set of behaviors is. Once I knew that's ADHD. Yeah. This is a thing people have studied. They write about this. They know what this is. And
it's not your fault.
This is not my fault.
Yeah.
How do you go? You can't just go back to that, who that guy was yesterday after you learn that. You can't just turn around and be that guy you were before. But you also don't know how to wake up the next day, because you don't have any real systems to put in place to actually, figure out what you need done. Get what you need done. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so it was actually a much longer period than that, just trying to figure out kind of what are the systems that I need in place. And it's funny, because I was always a very organized guy, but I was organized because of organization, not because of productivity, right? I was organized because I loved being organized. Mm-hmm. I was not organized because it was actually delivering anything to me. So once I was able to put those pieces together and figure out how to put systems in place that would allow me to actually execute, and sort of leverage some of the habits that I had built around organization, but to understand why, what was the purpose of those tools. That eliminated some of that confusion and uncertainty. So it took a long time, but it was a matter of changing definitions for me, of what confusion and uncertainty meant, that I had it, that there are resources that exist to help through it.
And what I love about what you're saying is that you were able to put yourself in that position of vulnerability, to ask for help and to look for the resources and to get whatever it is that you needed to piece together. And then I think the other thing I want to acknowledge is that you're able to take into account how your ADHD affects you and not work against it, but work with it. And I think that's huge. I mean, I think that's my goal for so many of my clients is to not deny it, don't work against it, but okay, this is what it is. What do we need to do to still be successful and still get what you need done, and empower yourself in knowing that you are capable of doing that.
Right. You can't deny it. You can't deny it. No, that's a fool's errand. It is who you are. It's in your DNA, so to speak.
So I have a story to share that is completely off of what we just talked about with ADHD, but it goes into the denying of feelings that I want to share. My daughter is in third grade, and she has been taking a liking to acting and singing, and so she decided to try out for Peter Pan, and
excellent.
They had this little excuse me, they had this after school production. There was 18 kids, and she got a part of being the narrator, which was not the part that she wanted. She was disappointed because she wanted to have a bigger part. And so at the time that this was happening, Brad and I, my husband and I, were just really supporting her and just, well, congratulations on trying out. And you were so brave to want to do this. And, this is a good part, and really trying to kind of make it positive for her. And you're going to do great. And she did fantastic and everything. Well, then the next production was the whole third grade class. And she tried out to get a speaking part, and she didn't get it. So she was just going to be in the chorus singing. And she was very upset about this, as you can imagine. And her teacher saw that she was upset and kind of had a conversation with her about, just keep trying and it's going to work out for you, and, just kind of talk to her about it. Well, then yesterday, yes, because yesterday was the production of her third grade performance. I was getting her ready, and she was telling me about her best friend who was in both productions and basically got parts in both of the plays. Oh. And yeah. And my daughter, I talk a lot about my son. I don't talk much about my daughter, but she's a really caring spirit and a very positive spirit. And so she'll take a bad situation and she will make it positive, or she won't make a big deal about it, right? But then when but when it is a big deal, she'll just cry a river. Like, she wears her emotions on her sleeve.
Sure.
So I'm getting her ready for the production, and she's telling me about this conversation that she had with her best friend, and how her best friend was upset one day. She was sad one day. And Paige says, well, why are you sad? Because you got a speaking part in both plays and you got exactly what you wanted. Why are you sad?
Yeah.
And, and so they had their conversation, and I asked Paige, and I was really quick, and I kind of had to stop myself for a second, because I was really quick to want to just go to the positive, right? And just say, well, you got to be happy for your best friend and support her and keep trying. I mean, that's what I wanted to say. But after us talking about all of this, I thought, I need to validate how she's feeling right now. Mm-hmm. And
she doesn't need a cheerleader.
She doesn't. And so I asked her, I said, does it bother you that your best friend got those parts? Yes, it does. Yeah. Does it make you sad? Yeah, it does. It makes me sad. And I'm like, that is totally normal. It is totally normal for you to be sad for yourself that you didn't get him. And it's okay to be a little jealous that she did.
Yeah.
And I don't know where she's going to go with that, because she's only 9.
Yeah, right.
But I really felt like I just had to validate the fact that, it's okay to feel these feelings. Don't try to push them away. Don't try to deny them. And of course, she's growing and she's learning, and there's going to be lots of disappointments and hopefully lots of successes that she's going to be able to celebrate as well. But man, what a hard thing to grasp, that she wanted these things, she didn't get them, and her best friend did. I mean, that sucks.
Yeah. It's funny. It's a funny parallel, right? That valley of despair, right? That's part of rationalizing how she feels right now, is that, I can't go back to the way it was before I auditioned and I fancied something about myself that now it appears by external evidence I'm not. And that's, of course, not true, right? Because she's 9, right? It's not true, but that's so easy for the brain to say that. Or I should say the heart to say that, to be just devastated inside,
Oh, of course.
To have your worldview changed on that kind of level. So that's a big deal.
Yeah. So I know that was a little different than what we were talking about, but I kind of think it all sort of wraps up.
Well, I think it does. And I think it goes back to this idea of uncertainty and how you frame confusion and frame confusion in this effort to be more productive, to be able to be, if she uses her experience as a motivator to learn and to, maybe take an acting class, maybe take a singing class, if that's something that, that gives her, incentive to become stronger. It's certainly, that was certainly how it played out for me. I mean, I ended up becoming, I think, stronger in my ability to say no to the wrong things. I'm still definitely learning that. But to say yes to the right things, no to the wrong things, and know what I can't take on. I'm still constantly struggling with that, but at least I know when I'm facing it.
And what a gift that we get to listen to you and you get to teach some of those things.
Well, I don't know about that.
Oh, I totally do. Yeah.
You're very kind.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing, Pete.
Well, thanks for coaching. This is a good conversation. Thank you, everybody, for listening to us. Make sure to find us on Facebook and Twitter. We'd love to hear your stories, too. And a special shout out, I've got to add, a special shout out to a friend of the show and listener, Jordan Gamble. We had we met. He came up to Portland or down to Portland, and we met. We had a lovely coffee together and talked about his experience listening to the show, and it was a real treat. So thank you, Jordan, for reaching out. Love that experience.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was good fun. So, anyhow, that's all I've got. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next week on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.